Marcus, New York University professor. He's an expert in AI, joins us now. Gary, good to have you. Good to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
I was listening to a podcast last night with Satya Nadella, who runs Microsoft, talking about the fact that in his belief, it doesn't even need to be winner take all. There are going to be so many beneficiaries in terms of the various platforms, whether it be OpenAI or Grok 3, or you can go through so many of the different names. And that, in fact, it could add as much efficiency that we get 10% GDP growth. His words, not mine. Why do you disagree?
I mean, so far, we certainly haven't seen that. And I mean, he actually acknowledged that a couple days ago. You know, in the long term, over the 30 or 50-year horizon, sure. But the AI that we have right now is not very reliable. Hallucinations have been a problem since the jump. They're not solved. These stupid errors that they sometimes make are not solved. Grok 3 was 15 times bigger in terms of its training than Grok 2. They had to build 2 giant new data centers, and it still has the same problems that we keep seeing over and over again. Deep learning is the technique that people are using. It's a fine technique, but it's not the answer, I think, to artificial general intelligence. And if you want that 10% GDP bump, you might need something that is more reliable, is better able to understand symbolic knowledge that humans use, and so forth. So we may need some advances before we can get to that kind of big bump. Meanwhile, with what we have, everybody tries it out, but lots of companies are disappointed when they really try it out in detail.
Yeah, I mean, the enterprise is obviously a key user question, I guess. I mean, I've been trying all of the various bots, and Grok 3 certainly did seem to be pretty impressive in many ways. What gives you doubt then in terms of the enterprise and in terms of this leap being available in the near term for many of these companies?
A lot of these things are impressive, but when you dive deep, you find that there are errors. They're often subtle. So, for example, I asked Grok 3 to give me a list of all the cities west of Denver and give me their populations, and it just left out Billings, Montana. And, you know, the output looks clean, but you don't notice that. Then it told me there was a 5.7, I think, earthquake in Billings, Montana, like a week before, and it didn't actually exist. People aren't going to notice that at first, but if you have customers and those errors get out, that's going to cost you, right? Customers expect reliability, and I think that's been what has held people back, is the reliability is just not there. Some of the answers are amazing.
And you're finding it as well, Gary, on the inference front? I mean, you know, we're moving now, obviously, ChatGPT or 3.0. For example, in reasoning, you were also finding fault with these models?
Yeah, the examples I gave actually were with the reasoning-based system. So, you know, calling it reasoning is almost like hype. It doesn't reason in the way that logicians have talked about for centuries, where you really represent something in a truly abstract form. The reasoning that it does depends on how close something is to something in the training data. And that means that it works better on these benchmarks for math and coding, where they can do verification tricks and data augmentation, than it does in the real world. You push it out of its comfort zone, so to speak, being anthropomorphic, and it winds up still making mistakes. Not all the time, but these subtle mistakes that get past, even when you have the so-called reasoning. I think we need some genuine advance in reasoning, probably drawing on some techniques from classical AI that are out of favor before we get to something we can really count on.
Hey, Gary, you said this week, I think, that the end game, in your view, for Gen AI was surveillance, and that you think we're essentially there. What leads you to that?
Well, so Doge is basically surveilling, you know, reading the emails of government employees. That is a huge step towards 1984. And I had said before that I thought OpenAI would be pushed in that direction for some of the reasons that we're talking about. So OpenAI has incredible personal data from people. People use it as almost like a psychotherapist or something like that. So they put in a lot of personal data, or companies put in a lot of personal or business-related data that's quite private. And so OpenAI is sitting on all of this data, but because of the reliability problems that I just mentioned, which afflict them as much as Grok and anybody else, they aren't getting the sort of traditional customers they were hoping. You know, the fantasy was everybody was going to use this stuff for everything. You know, it was going to be a general intelligence, it was going to replace every employee. That's not really working out until they have some major advance in the AI. I don't think it's going to work out as well as they thought. But they can always sell the data, and that's pushing them towards surveillance.
I would just end with, I mean, OpenAI is going to be valued perhaps as much as $300 billion post money from SoftBank money coming in. They're going to do probably $12 billion in revenues this year. They just put up they went from 300 to 400 million weekly average users. It doesn't appear that they're suffering right now, Gary.
Yeah, but you have to look at the economics of how much it costs to run what they're doing, to do what they're doing. So, they lost money last year. They're losing money on their newest search by Sam's own testimony. They're just, this is not like the traditional internet where the cost of the software, running the software was minimal and almost everything was margin. These models are incredibly expensive to build. They're incredibly expensive to operate. And so 12 billion sounds like a lot, but this is a company that has taken in a lot more of that, is about to take another $30 billion. I would guess that they'll lose $10 billion this year. So yes, they'll bring in 10 or 12 or whatever, but then they'll spend another 10. So they're continuing to lose money. The economics don't really make obvious sense to me.
Yeah, well, it's certainly something we're going to pay close attention to and look forward to continuing our conversation. Gary, thank you.